it was not a surprise to me that we were having a problem.
Within the intelligence community, the NSA was blamed in part for missing major terrorist attacks, including the bombing of the USS Cole in Yemen and the American embassies in Africa. When India tested a nuclear device, the NSA failed to sound a timely warning.
Our guard was down, there's no question. Part of the problem was that we have so few assets that we had redeployed assets elsewhere. And we had also, because there's been so much discussion about our capabilities, denial and deception has become much more easy for our people who want to fool us to practice.
In some hotspots like Haiti, intelligence collected could not be analyzed because the agency could not find enough people who spoke the language, something a senior NSA official concedes in this internal videotape obtained by author Jim Bamford.
Years ago, we looked around. There were a total of 3 Haitian Creole linguists in the entire cryptologic system. One in NSA, one in the Navy, and one in the Army, and that was it. So we had to go outsource, hire a lot of Haitian Creole speakers, many of whom lived in downtown Washington doing menial labor.
But some electronic spy work is getting easier. Wireless communication, for example, can be readily intercepted. To impress VIPs, NSA has played tapes of Osama bin Laden's conversations on his satellite phone. A new submarine is being equipped to tap fiber optic cable on the ocean floor. And even internet traffic is more accessible, according to this remarkable admission from the NSA official on that internal videotape.
You know, we're much farther ahead now in terms of being able to access and collect network data, fiber optics data, cellular data, all the different modalities of communications that we are targeting.
Committee will be in order.
It is not so much cracking the encryption and collecting the data where NSA falls behind, but in sorting it all out, warns the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
The haystack is huge. What are the needles that count? And where shall we focus our attention to focus on those needles? That's the analytical piece of this. And that is actually the part that is most troublesome.
Critics of the NSA claim that the agency routinely understates its capabilities and overstates its challenges in order to get more money from Congress. The real problem with the NSA, those critics charge, is not that it's growing deaf, but that it listens far too much. That part of the story when we come back. The NSA's enormous eavesdropping ability has inspired paranoid fantasies in film and fiction.
Get into your bank statements, computer files, email, listen to your phone calls.
They appear far-fetched, but privacy advocates believe the NSA's reach and secrecy are cause enough for concern.
Well, the problem is, if you think that you're subject to NSA surveillance, how would you know? That's the most classified entity in the United States government.
Wayne Madsen, once assigned to the NSA as a Navy lieutenant, is now senior fellow at the Electronic Privacy Information Center.
Right now, it's basically NSA determines whether they're following the law or not. To me, that's like the fox guarding the hen house.
We do not spy on Americans. The intelligence community in this country does not spy on Americans. It's out of bounds if it is doing that. And the reason we have oversight committees in Congress, one in the House and one in the Senate, is to make sure that does not happen.
In the 1970s, the NSA did spy on American anti-war protesters at the request of the Nixon White House. But since those abuses surfaced in congressional hearings, the NSA has been required to obtain warrants from a secret federal court before eavesdropping on Americans within U.S. borders and permission from the Attorney General for spying on citizens outside the country. But outside the United States, where the NSA and English-speaking allies operate a vast listening system known as Echelon, the rules are not so clear-cut.
The American Constitution protects, to a very large extent, the privacy of U.S. citizens or people living in the United States of America legally, so-called U.S. persons. the American Constitution doesn't protect the rest of the world.
I'm not a political figure, nor do I want to be one.
Take the late Princess Diana, for example. The NSA recently confirmed it had thousands of pages in her file. It's not clear whether the agency eavesdropped on Diana's own conversations or recorded references to her by others. But the NSA's critics are convinced Princess Diana's politics played a role.
The fact she was heading up the international campaign to ban landmines. The United States was opposed to that ban. And obviously, because she was a politically active individual, she wound up in the NSA ensnarement net. Other groups, Mother Teresa, Amnesty International, Greenpeace, we see a lot of these organizations that have been subject to this type of monitoring.
The danger is that we have created something that is so good that we pick up extraneous material, and you've got to be sure that that is not abused. All I can tell you is that we have safeguards for it.
Mike Frost, who conducted surveillance for the Canadian counterpart of the NSA, told us such safeguards are routinely finessed. Are there cases in which one government's intelligence network asks the government of another to carry out a task it can't do legally?
My experience was that this was done all the time.
For example, Frost says, he once participated in an eavesdropping operation in the United States at the request of the NSA. Frost also claims the British equivalent of the NSA, known as GCHQ, asked the Canadians to eavesdrop on suspected rivals of former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher.
She was not sure if a couple of her ministers were in her corner or not, and she wanted to find out not necessarily what they were saying, but what they were thinking.
The British government, of course, has denied this.
Of course, they will deny that forever.